Hey guys, thanks for joining me. My name is Lee White, and this week we're going to be going over 5 steps to super productivity. Thanks for joining me. It's going to be fun. This video comes from teaching for a number of years and also being part of the illustration professional design community. And I've noticed a few things, and let me know if you guys fall into that category. You're exhausted. You're all totally exhausted. My students come into class, they're dragging themselves to class. They're not getting enough work done or getting the kind of work that they want to get done, the quality maybe not as high as they want it to. They're not getting enough sleep. Same is true once you transition, or what I've noticed once students transition from being students to being professionals. They're just exhausted all the time. The people that I asked, hey, how's it going lately? A lot of the answers is, oh, I'm so busy. I'm so busy. And so you may be asking yourself, why am I talking about being busy if I'm talking about super productivity? Does that mean you're going to be more busy? The answer is no. What I want to teach you guys is a way, or hopefully teach you guys a way to be productive and also have a life where you're not completely exhausted all the time, where you're creatively motivated and you're moving your projects forward in a way that's sustainable over the long term. I think of our career in illustration and design as being a marathon and not a sprint. But the problem is everyone's acting like it's a marathon, but running at sprint pace. And that causes burnout, and it causes relationships to sour, and it causes you just not to generally have a good overall life. And so let's go ahead and get into it. Don't want to talk about stuff too long without just diving into the things I want to show you guys. So again, not a very elegant presentation, but hopefully it'll do for now. These are my 5 steps, and I want to go through them. They're simple. Like, I think most things that are good should be simple, and they should be easy to explain. And so hopefully you guys get a lot out of this, but I'm going to go through how I organize my day, how I organize my week. I'm doing all these books. I'm doing book covers, teaching a bunch of classes. I'm making videos. I run an art school. I do art fairs and gallery shows, and I'm almost always off by at least 4:30 in the afternoon. I don't work weekends, and I don't work nights. So let me show you how I do it. The first step is to write everything down. It seems like a logical step. All these things will be logical. You're probably reading through this list right now and saying, well, of course that makes sense. But let me show you how I do it, just so you can get an idea. I use software. I've written some of it down here, but I'll make links in the description below. I use a couple of different programs. I just mess around. I'm always experimenting. And that's one thing I do recommend is one size does not fit all in all this, and so find what works for you. For me, this is a program called Daymap, and I like it quite a bit. You could do this on a piece of notebook paper. It does not require an app, but I like this one because it enables me to have the different areas of my life. I've got illustration, I've got teaching, I've got the craft fairs and gallery shows, and then a personal section as well. So this is where I write everything. And when you start to write everything, there's 2 things I'm going to recommend. One is you have a focused section. You see right here, this may be small on your screen. I don't know how big it is. I don't know if I can even make it bigger, but I've got a little category called focus, and whatever I'm actually working on at the time, I put into that little folder. And so each group has a focus. Right now I'm doing a light and shadow class for the school that I teach at. I'm doing have a craft show or art show coming up in 2 weeks, and that's going to be in this focus. And so each category, I've got one thing that I'm focused on, and everything else goes into my next little folder, which is called a waiting folder. It's really important to have those, because you can't have lists of, oh, I'm going to do 31 Inktober drawings, and I'm going to do 2 children's books, and I'm going to do a book of poems and 3 book covers. And then, you can see where that'll get away from you. It'll get away from you really quick. And so I like having one, just put it on one line, like this is the thing that I'm focused on. But the first step is to get it all down. Like everything that you want to do, get it all down. So this is Daymap. So like I said, it breaks it up into different categories. There's a few other software packages that I've been playing with. One of them is ClickUp.com. I'm not getting paid, or there's no endorsement by any of these companies. I just find what I like and I use it. I use Monday.com as well. You guys may have seen ads for that on Facebook or whatever. That's how I originally clicked on a link. It was way too expensive. I love the software, but way too expensive for a personal use kind of thing. If you're a company, maybe that works pretty well. You can see this is ClickUp, and this is just how it looks within one of the projects that I'm doing. I'm doing a book called This Pretty Planet, and now I'm on the 10th and 11th spread, and I just keep it organized that way. And I've got other things over here. Again, same list: art fair, the school that I run, and so there's not one specific thing that works better than the other. I like Daymap. It keeps things a little bit cleaner. And I can't remember if there's a charge for that, but check it out. Monday.com is great too, but it's expensive. The next thing I want to talk about is figuring out what goes on that list. I'm going to pull up my Daymap thing just so we have something to look at here. For me, I'm doing a book that's going to be published next year, so that is the thing that's important to me. The next little subhead here under my write it down, step 1, is figure out what's important. You can't do everything. You can do anything, but you can't do everything. And so you need to figure out which thing is going to move you in the direction that you want to go, and which things do you not need. For me, I love the idea of Inktober. My friend Jake made Inktober, and I teach with him all the time, and he's had huge success with it. I don't need Inktober right now for the things that I'm focused on. It looks cool, and I'm going to watch all you guys do Inktober, but I got some other stuff that I'm doing. It's not important to me right now. In other words, you can't do everything, and so you really do need to say, hey, I need to get a portfolio put together. That'll be your thing. Or I need to do some book covers because I'm trying to get work in there. That'll be your focus. But you can't be focused on everything. It just leaves you a little bit diluted. And so I do want you guys to start focusing. We'll talk about that a little bit more as we go. Step 2, this is the big one. I have a lot of students ask about this, and some of my students know certain techniques that I use. This one is a huge one. Have some kind of system in place that organizes your day and your weeks. For me, I use a system called time blocking. Time blocking is a really cool technique. I'll talk about just the basics of it. You can see this is very small, probably very small on your screen, but there is a little button up here at the top. It's some software. It's called Be Focused. It's based on a little timer, and it's basically a 50-minute block. And you can see today I've done 6 of those blocks. I just work in small blocks of time, 50 minutes at a time. And it works out really, really well for me. That came from a technique known as the Pomodoro technique, which is basically one of those little kitchen timers. And it's just really, you just set the timer and you work really, really hard during that time frame. You don't talk on the phone, you don't check your email. You've got to be really, really focused, there's some other techniques for that. But you can't be doing all that stuff and be getting into doing really productive work and having productive days. So you can see this thing's counting down. I'm in one of these blocks right now as I'm filming this thing. And so I make time for each thing. I'm trying to do 2 things at once. You want to be really, really specific with your time blocking. I've tried this technique with a lot of different students over the years, and it's amazing the transformative power of organizing your day into time blocks. Now, you're going to think I'm OCD because of all this stuff. I promise I'm not. I drift off of this, and you just need some kind of template for organizing your day. And I'm going to talk a little bit about those 2 things. For me, 50-minute blocks is what I found I can focus for a long enough period of time and work really intensely. And then I have 10 minutes to check an email, to walk around. I typically like to get up and move around a little bit because I just don't like being stationary that long. But 50 minutes is perfect for me to work, and then 10 minutes I do whatever, and then I start it again. This software, the Be Focused software, walks me through that. And so each time I click go. Some people like 25-minute blocks and then a 5-minute break, and then 25-minute block and a 5-minute break. Some people like 2 hours and then a 10-minute break. So you just got to figure it out for yourself. But here's how I do it. And then one of the other things that I have here is figure out what a perfect day looks like for you, and figure out what the perfect week looks like for you. And so if I can get my iCal back, I lost my mouse. I love doing this while I'm filming and can't find my software. There we go. Come on back. I'm trying to get my iCal back up. There we go. I like simple software as well, by the way. I don't need a ton of crazy stuff, but I am mentioning some software in here. So my day, figure out what your perfect day is, and you got to be specific about that. And so for me, I'm working on a book. Everything you see here in green is when I work on a book. And so I have 4 blocks, basically, of book work that I do every day. Now, I could just say, hey, I work on a book for 4 hours and write in there, hey, book illustration, and that'd be perfect. That's not good enough. For this technique to really pay off and to really work, you have to be specific. So again, I don't know how big this is on your screen, but spread 13, block in. Spread 13, block in, spread 13, block in, spread 13, block in. That is what I did yesterday. And then if you move over to today, it's the point I'm trying to make here is it's very, very specific. If you watch my other videos, you see the steps that I use for making an illustration. Sometimes it'll be, 6 a.m. That's going to be thumbnailing, and the next block will be thumbnailing, and the next block will be thumbnailing, and the next block will be something else. The point is, you don't want to have just a lot of people, a lot of my students work, they say, okay, Tuesday I'm going to do an illustration. See how vague that is? And so with that kind of vague description, a lot of distractions and wasted time comes into play. When you're really specific, like, hey, on Tuesday at 7 a.m., I'm going to do thumbnail sketches for this project. That's specific, and that's what works really well. So you can see I work on 2 alternating spreads at a time, and so that's what I do. I also want to emphasize, figure out when you are effective. For me, I like waking up early. My schedule, this is my schedule every day. I'll go over that real quick. 5 a.m. I wake up. I got an hour to wake up and take a shower and eat breakfast and walk around and generally get up. But 6 o'clock, I'm in the studio, and that's when I start working. And I do 4 hours. And after about 4 hours of this kind of intense work, you really, really need a break. I need a break. It's hard to just keep going at that capacity because you're working intensely. It's not just light work. It's not just an all-day thing that you're just dabbling at it. You're really intensely working. And then I need to do something else because I get bored. So I spend 2 hours just messing around. I like being physically active, and so I'll either go to the gym or go play disc golf or whatever I'm going to do, but I schedule it right in the middle there, and it kind of wakes me up because I generally get tired in the afternoon. I don't know about you guys, but again, everybody has a specific schedule to their day in terms of when can you work on creative stuff, when do you slow down. For me, slowing down is in the afternoon, so I like to schedule stuff that doesn't require too much creativity in the afternoon. So I have those couple different areas of my life: gallery and teaching and illustration. And so in the afternoon, I have a gallery show coming up, or an art fair rather, and so I'm getting prints ready. I'm doing that all this week because the show's in 10 days. So I spend 3 hours doing that, and I have 1 hour of email because that doesn't require really much effort and admin stuff. And then I am done by 4 o'clock and I am out of here. I can do whatever I want to. I can play with my son. I can go on a bike ride, do whatever you want to. The point is, I'm not working from 8 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock at night and then doing the same thing the next day and then pulling an all-nighter the next day. I'm not tired. If you see me, I will not be tired because I know I'm getting off at 4 o'clock because I have built this schedule. Now, one of the things I had written earlier here, figure out what the perfect day looks like for you. How many hours do you want to work in a day? And figure out what the schedule would look like using these time blocks for how that day would work. I guarantee you, if you had to write out your ideal day, it's not going to be doing 12 hours of work. It's going to be probably, 6 to 8 hours, 6 to 9 hours maybe of intense work, and then go do something else and go have a life and go hang out with your friends and don't be so lame. Artists are a pretty lame bunch. They're boring because they're working all the time. Not that there are certain times, I should add, that you're going to bust your butt, like when you're in school and you have finals coming up, or if you're working like at the end of my book projects. Those are just small times of times that you are going to work that way, but that should not be your normal life. So if you're just working all the time, hopefully this is going to free you up quite a bit. The next little subhead on number 2, having a system in place, is plan for daily and weekly admin. I'll talk a little bit about that in a second too, but you should have a place for that. that there's going to be emails, there's going to be some stuff that comes up. So don't just think you're going to work on projects all the time, because you're going to get thrown, which I'll talk about in number 4. Number 3, when you get into those time blocks, when I get into the time blocks and 6 a.m. hits and I click that little button on my software on top of my computer screen and it starts counting down, you want to eliminate your distractions. I have a program called Self-Control. Again, I'm not paid by these companies, but I like it. I'm going to bring it up over here if I can grab it. There we go. You can see this is a little timer. I can move it all over the place. I just schedule my blocks. Again, I do 4 blocks at a time typically. So I say, 4 hours is pretty good. When I hit start, that is going to bring up, my mouse is not working very well at all. There we go. This is some of the ones that just came with it, but it's a domain blacklist. Basically, it says, hey, during this 4 hours, I will not go to Facebook. Then these 4 hours, I will not go to YouTube, or whatever the distraction is for you. This will turn it off. It even has an email thing. Like, you can't open your email if it's turned on. And it has been fantastic for me. It avoids you going to check news sites or all the stuff that's just on the internet. Don't ever turn me off, though. This station should be on always. But there's just too much bombardment. When you're time blocking and you're trying to get stuff done, you're trying to be productive and have time left over to do other stuff, you really do need to get down to work. And looking at stuff on the internet is not going to help you out. So I use this software. It's called, like I said, it's called Self-Control. It's fantastic. And so I highly recommend it. I think there's probably a couple of other ones too. So check them out. It will change your day to not have incoming messages. Like you can see at the top of my screen, I've got incoming messages, which I need to turn those off. So eliminating self-control is going to be important, or eliminating distraction is going to be important. So eliminate the messages and the websites and all the things on your computer, but you also want to eliminate the people in your life that are messing up your day. If you need to, lock your door and say, hey, for me, it's 6 a.m. to about 10 a.m. in the morning. You can't talk to me. Don't talk to me because I'm working. And that most people will understand that. You need to set those boundaries and say, hey, leave me alone and get the work done. You can't have people asking you questions and doing all this stuff. So try to do that. I know it's harder if you're working in a team environment or a open cubicle kind of things where people are just chatting all the time. But just set your watch and set your timers. And when the timer starts going, just work. And you'll be surprised at how much fun it is to eliminate all that stuff, all that clutter, and say, hey, I'm working on spread 13 and I'm working on laying in my bass tones or whatever thing that I'm doing at that moment. I'm adding detail or whatever my little thing says. That's all I'm doing. I'm not trying to do 4 or 5 things at once. All right, this is a big one. Number 4, plan for less. Plan for less, plan for less. Here's the problem that students run into, and then young professionals run into as well, because they do this as a student. They plan, when I say, hey, do this time blocking thing and start to organize your schedule a little bit, understand what your day is looking like. They plan for the absolute perfect week. Like, okay, I'm going to finish that project at 1, and then at 1:10, I'm going to start on this next project. And at, Thursday at 2:30, I'll start on this next project. And, or they even do it with semesters. They'll say, okay, like my perfect semester is having 5 of these classes and I'll be able to do them like this. Well, the problem is when one thing falls down, here's what typically happens in a work environment and a school environment. There's a fire to be put out. There's some deadline you have to hit. Typically, you will hit that deadline because you'll stay up and you'll work or whatever, you'll rush for it. The problem isn't that job. It's all the ones that got pushed because you had to finish that first one. And that is where the disaster happens. There's no padding in the schedule. So now everything becomes late all the way down the line. And I worked for years like this. There was a time where I was doing like 6 books at a time because the first one didn't finish on time. I did exactly what I'm saying here. I set up the optimal time. Hey, I'm going to be done March 1st. So I'll start my next project March 2nd. Well, March 1st came around and I wasn't done. So now I've got 2 projects. Oh my gosh, I can't do both of them. So now I have 3 projects, and they just domino all the way down. So you want to set up a time where you are taking on less work. take on less. When I'm advising students, I say, how many classes can you take in a term? Oh, I can take 4, I can take 5 because I want to finish early. And I say, okay, take 3. And they're like, oh my gosh, that'll be too easy. You want it to feel too easy because you want to be able to do good work. The best thing in the world is to have one of these days scheduled like I have here. I have it all blocked out, and all of a sudden, instead of being done at 4, I'm actually done at 1. Oh my gosh, that's the best thing in the world. I'll either start on another project, or typically I try not to do that. I'll go do something fun. I'll go to the movies or something. Again, having a life is just as important as having a good work life, having balance, I guess is what I'm saying there. So you want to avoid trying to think that your day and your weeks are going to be perfect. Try to schedule for less, and that way when the disasters do happen, or you didn't get the finish that you wanted and you have to start a drawing over, or your computer crashes or whatever, now you have a buffer for all of that stuff, and it makes a world of difference. I try not to overlap projects now, so I try to only work on one at a time for each category if I can. I don't like to have multiple books going at the same time. Again, if you're a student, take on less classes, as few classes as you can, not as many classes as you can, and you'll be surprised at the level of quality of the work goes up, but more importantly, your level of enjoyment goes up, and that's really what we're about, is having a good life, right? Factor in all of your steps. When you're trying to think of how long a project takes, you want to go back maybe and check some of the other videos that I've done, especially on how to create good illustrations, because it's not just painting a final illustration that I need to factor in. It's doing rough sketches, talking with a client and making revisions, doing color studies, doing alternate samples for the client. I mean, there's all kinds of things that happen before I actually do the finish. And so you need to factor all that stuff in there. If you're a student, well, how long does it take you to travel to school? How long does it take you to travel to work? You need to factor in these other time sucks, I guess. I don't know how else to say it. You just need to factor in the steps that go into you doing your work and you living your life, and don't plan for just the optimal perfect thing to happen in terms of a schedule and time blocking. You might even want to have a whole block, and I used to do this quite a bit, is I would have whole days where it would say buffer. That's all it would say, and knowing that the project is going to push into that probably. So don't overschedule yourself, basically underschedule yourself, and be happy with it. Your work will be better. Step 5 is revise this whole process as needed. It's easy to do it once. Like on a Sunday afternoon when you have time, you'll do all this stuff. You'll write out the projects you're working on. You'll edit them down. You'll do it. And then all of a sudden, Wednesday comes along and you have to go to the doctor because you got sick. Oh no. Well, this is yours to edit, and you need to make it yours. You may find that when you build out these little blocks that, hey, I didn't get enough work. I got distracted because the blocks are too short. Well, then make them longer. Or I couldn't work that long in an intense way without distraction. So make the block shorter. And so it's yours to edit and yours to revise. It's a very living kind of organism. It's not something that's set in stone. And again, it looks OCD only because it looks like it's going to be I plan every second of my day. It moves and it's organic, and sometimes I'm moving blocks all over the place. Like this will slip in. Okay, so my art prints aren't going to happen. My sketch took longer, and so now this slips into that block. No big deal. It's just a guide. It's not something you're locked into. But hey, I'm not sure why that cut off right there, but for some reason the last little part of my clip cut off. I was just wrapping it up anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up now. Thank you guys for joining me so much. Please comment in the section below. Ask me any questions you want. I check this, every now and again. I'll have a little time block for checking YouTube comments. How about that? Anyway, thanks again, and I will see you guys next time.